Led Zeppelin, one of the most iconic rock bands of all time, but when it comes to their live performances, opinions are sharply divided. Some say they were mind-blowing, others say they were sloppy and inconsistent. Today we're going to dive into this debate and hear from none other than Rush's Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, who had their own unforgettable experiences seeing Led Zeppelin live. And if you watch the screen, you'll see comments from my channel viewers going by who think that Led Zeppelin was subpar as a live band. Now, the idea that Led Zeppelin was not such a great live band is based around a few really general points. First of all, Jimmy Page gets a lot of criticism for being sloppy. Plant gets a lot of criticism for not being able to measure up to his vocal performances on record. And all of the band members, with maybe the exception of John Paul Jones, are accused of overindulging in drugs and alcohol. The contrasting point of view is that Led Zeppelin was the ultimate live rock band and ultimate live rock experience, and that they were improvisational masters, and that their use of drugs and alcohol was certainly part of the experience and played a role in both their best and worst performances. And if you're interested in that aspect of the band, I have a video on it called Jimmy Page Explains the Led Zeppelin Lifestyle, which you can look at. Now, if you are of the opinion that Led Zeppelin is the greatest live band ever, it's usually due to the idea that they are always improvising and finding new territories. So they aren't going out and playing the same set over and over. And there are many clips of Jimmy Page talking about that very fact. That was sort of the heart and soul of Led Zeppelin. All right, for now, let's get into the first audio clip. Let's hear from Rush's Geddy Lee, who saw Led Zeppelin along with Alex Lifeson and John Rutsey as a teenager, and his reaction to that experience was quite profound. Let's listen into what Geddy Lee had to say.
Musicians talk about life-changing moments, and I mean, lots of people talk about life-changing moments, and it's hard to take that expression seriously, but I can say in all honesty that for me and Alex Lifeson, my BFF and my partner in crime for a million years, and also for John Rutsey, who was our drummer at the time, it was a life-changing experience. You know, we sat there in the second row, and Jimmy Page didn't walk on stage, he floated on stage. I'm sure there was a cloud under his feet. And it was such a profoundly intense rock experience. And the rafters were literally shaking, and plaster was literally falling off the ceiling. They really brought the house down. And it was a kind of rock music that we had never really heard or felt in that way.
So Geddy, Alex, and John Rutsey were totally blown away by Zeppelin, in awe of the sheer power of the band live. And they weren't alone. Hundreds of thousands of people felt the same way when they saw Led Zeppelin live. And many of the young kids out in the audience in the early 70s who saw Led Zeppelin live became musicians due to that experience. Now, when it comes to Led Zeppelin's impact on an audience, as Geddy Lee mentioned, Jimmy Page was front and center, and he may have been one of the first guitarists to take on this almost mythic role. Whereas Eric Clapton was looked at as a huge guitar hero, and Ritchie Blackmore was out there floating around in the ether, but Jimmy Page was the first guitarist to step up and be kind of a mythic figure who didn't also sing, by the way. Just as a guitar player, producer, personified on stage, he was setting a new mold, and that's important in framing Alex Lifeson's experience to seeing Jimmy Page live. So let's listen to what he had to say here. Here's Alex Lifeson speaking.
Then Zeppelin came along, and we really fell in love with Zeppelin, and they were probably the biggest influences on us. Certainly Jimmy Page was the biggest influence on me. I loved his playing, and I loved everything that he represented, his look, his style of playing, the looseness in his playing. I really learned an awful lot from him, probably more than anyone else.
Lifeson goes out of his way to mention Page's loose, bluesy style and his willingness to take risks as the reason why he feels that Led Zeppelin was such an important band and that it set the tone for Alex's own guitar explorations. But does that actually mean that Led Zeppelin was a great live band because they had this incredible impact on Geddy and Alex and presumably John Rutsey when they saw them live? Here are the criticisms. Let's run over them again, and they're readily available all over the internet, and you can hear them for yourself on many Led Zeppelin bootleg performances or even in the film The Song Remains the Same. Jimmy Page's often sloppy playing, Robert Plant's not up to snuff voice, and the often too long, kind of wandering, meandering jams. Now, even the most die-hard Led Zeppelin fans out there will admit that there are certain times when the band was not at their best, but they will also argue that this is what happens when you take risks in a live setting. Some nights you're going to be brilliant, some nights you're going to be not so brilliant, and you're even going to vary within the performances on the same night. So here's what I'd like to know from you, particularly if you were lucky enough to have seen Led Zeppelin live yourself. What do you remember? Was it the best show of your life, or were you a bit underwhelmed? And for everyone else, like me, who weren't lucky enough to see Led Zeppelin, what's your opinion based on the live recordings, bootlegs, and video footage that we have? Do you think that Led Zeppelin was a great live band, or were they too inconsistent to deserve that title? Some people are always going to see Led Zeppelin as the greatest band ever. Others are going to argue that their genius in the studio wasn't translatable to the stage. My personal opinion is that Led Zeppelin was not as an impressive live band as their reputation suggests, and that perhaps the best live performances of Led Zeppelin's material was actually given by Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes, but that's a topic for a different video. This is what I think, but what really matters is what you think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.